I had notes. I was prepared. I was prepared for class, okay? I don't care. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is part 2, episode 2 of my book club reading series. Now if you guys have not already watched the first video, please go ahead and hit this link over here at the corner and make sure you watch that first and then come back to this one. Once you've gotten the book, of course. If you already have the book and you've already started reading or have already read the book, great, perfect. But you would want to go ahead and see the first video first and then come to this video next. So, as stated in the last video, we're reading More Than Enough by Elaine Welteroth. As I stated in the last video about the book series, I was going to start reading the first 2 chapters first, discuss some things, and we'll take it from there. So, I've read the first 2 chapters and I wanted to go ahead and start a discussion on what was talked about on those 2 chapters. So if we take the first chapter is titled Born Enough. In that chapter, she speaks about the day that she was born and what happened on that day. She also talks about how her mother wanted a girl really badly. They had already, her parents had a son, and her mother wanted to have the daughter next so that it could be like that big brother protecting and being there for his little sister. It also talks about how her parents met. Now, Elaine Welteroth is half black, half white. Her father is white and her mother is black. Her mother was born and raised between on the East Coast. She lived her schooling time when she was in elementary and grade school. She lived in New York, and her summers were spent in Georgia with her grandparents. And then her father was born and raised in California. At least that's what we know. We know he's been in California. Maybe he wasn't necessarily raised completely there. That isn't discussed in the book, but we know that he's lived, if not all of his life, most of his life, with his family in California. And how their parents ended up meeting was by her mother. When she moved to California, she met her husband, her now husband. And in the book, it discussed about how they were both from different worlds. I mean, from the obvious, he's white and she is black, but even through all of the differences that they, with how they were raised and just the outward appearance of how different they are, they still were able to find love. The father was titled as the hopeless romantic type, where the mom was considered more realistic with how she felt about love. So I know that in the beginning, before they ended up even getting to the stage of marriage, the father was in love with her. And not that the mother was not in love, but her mother was a little skeptical first because she knew the realities of how outward society, people outwardly not in the relationship that aren't family, would think it was very strange and weird and not the normal thing to do to marry outside of your race. But they ended up getting married. Love conquered all for them, and that's what they decided to do. So in this chapter, there is a quote that she highlights for this chapter, and the quote is, I want to make sure I read it correctly: "When a girl is born, a universe of possibilities is born within her." My definition, or what I took that in, is that every woman, every person, but because this is about women empowerment, every woman, when she is born, there are so many things at her fingertips. There is society that transforms things or makes it seem like because you're a woman, you can only do but certain things and live a certain way. But it is brought up that when you were first born, depending on how you take your path and how you decide to go in within your life, it opens up so much possibilities of where you could grow and be within your own life. And so I have a question for you guys. I wrote all this in my notes. I had notes. I was prepared for class, okay? So I also have a question for you guys. Do you believe that you were placed on this earth to do more than women before you? And what do I mean by that is this something that you've always known? Have you always had that feeling that I feel like I was brought here to make change, to inspire, to be the best woman that a woman could be? I want to know what your thoughts are on this, because even though one may think, Ericka, of course people think that way, that's not necessarily true. For me, I don't know if I necessarily felt that way. Maybe not to the bigger grand scheme of things, like in the world, but I definitely believe that I know that me being here in this era that I am around for, I don't know if I want to say it's a privilege, but it's different. The women before me, they didn't have opportunities that I have opportunities for. And even if some of those opportunities aren't necessarily the ones for me, I can definitely say that the possibility of me doing something is more possible than for my mom or my grandmother or my great-grandmother. So I do see that, even if there are things that I possibly could have done even more in my life, I do know that there's a possibility that I could have jumped into those things and been more successful than the women that are before me. Elaine also speaks about how her mother always told her that when she could remember. Her mother always said, and I quote, "I was born to go further than any woman in our family ever could." So for Elaine, she always knew that. Whatever that meant for her, as of right now, maybe, I don't know now, she hasn't discussed that in the book yet, but maybe she will. But she always knew that as a little girl. Her mother always instilled that into her. She's always known that I'm here, there's things that I could do that my ancestors may have never been able to do, or it wasn't necessarily created for that possibility. I mean, we as a people are strong, and we break through and make the impossible possible. So at some point we were going to be able to do it, but at that time it wasn't look like as even a possibility. And so now that she is the age that she was born in 1986, by the way, so she's considered a millennial. But for her to be where she is and in the era of life that she is in, there's way more possibilities than her mother or even her grandmother would have possibly expected for her. So I just want to say that from reading the first chapter, I've learned, or I was able to, not necessarily that I didn't know this, but it just made me really remember and think about the fact that no matter what age you are, no matter where you are in life, you can accomplish so much for you and the women after you. These young ladies who are growing up, or ladies who aren't even here yet, you are able to do so much and accomplish so much so that it is easier for them. So I just don't want any woman to feel that, oh, I'm 60 years old, my life, I've lived my life. There's no possibility. That's not gonna happen. No, there could be something that you can accomplish in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, and that thing that you can accomplish could set a standard, a level, a step for the next woman to do that and more. We can even think of it just as a short idea, or just to not even go into detail, just Kamala Harris. The fact that she is the first woman vice president. Not to say that I didn't think that was possible, but there are a lot of people who don't think that it was ever going to happen, or that it's possible. Maybe women in my age group were like, oh yeah, that was going to happen at some point. I was going to see that in my lifetime. But there were people before us who have never even thought that Obama would be president, and he has, and he served 2 terms. Just because you are a certain age, it doesn't mean that you still can't accomplish greatness. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about chapter 2. Chapter 2 of the book is titled White Paper Family. So remember back in chapter 1, I stated that the author of this book, Elaine Welteroth, she is of mixed race. So her mom is black and her dad is white. So she uses in the book, in this chapter, an example of a time where she was in school and she was given a project in class to make a collage, and they were supposed to take different magazines in the magazines and make a collage about their family. Now, one thing I will say is that in the school that she was in elementary school, it was predominantly white. As a matter of fact, in the book, in her class specifically, she was the only black girl, and the other kid of color was a Mexican little boy. He was Mexican. So that was it. And so when she was doing the project, the magazines didn't have diversity. It was more so white people, and if there were any people of color, it wasn't necessarily brought into the light of how she would describe how her mother, who was a black woman, was. She had a very difficult time with that. She was trying to go ahead and start the project, but it didn't look anything like her family, and her teacher noticed, and the teacher tried to change it and say, oh, why don't you put this person in and put that person in? But even though she was showing her children of color, those children didn't look like her nor her brother. So she was so embarrassed, and she felt that she was being pressured to stick out and look so different because it was so awkward, that she still went ahead and she continued the project with how she had it. And like I said, it didn't look anything like her family. And when she brought the project home, her mother was just like, no, that's not what we're gonna do. This is not a depiction of your family. And so her mom, her and her little brother sat down and they redid the project. And her mom pulled out Ebony magazine and Essence magazine so that she was able to take the project and really make it like hers, her family. And so ever since that project was made, she went ahead and she had it hung up in her room. So when she left in the morning and went to sleep at night, she was reminded that this is what her family looked like, and there was nothing wrong with it. I wanted to ask you guys, was there ever a specific moment that made you realize, oh, race is a thing, like this is a thing, like there's a difference? And what was that moment for you? If you don't mind sharing, share right down in the comment section below. For me, I noticed the difference at an early age. I can go back, I think I've always knew, but for me, I definitely can remember in my mind, I was in the first grade and I just always felt so different. I went to a school from elementary school all the way up into high school where it was predominantly white, but it was more impactful for me when I was in elementary school because I would be maybe the only black girl in the entire grade, not even the class, the entire grade. It was like me and one other black girl, and I don't think there was another black girl up until 5th or 6th grade. So you have a grade and there may be what, 3 to 4 classrooms, 3 or 4 teachers in that grade, and it was just me and one other person, and we didn't even necessarily be in the same class. We had different teachers, so I didn't interact with her like that. But I just remember feeling like an outsider, feeling different. For me, when I got to middle school, I was around kids more like me, but I remember my mom didn't even want me to go to the middle school that I went to. She wanted me to go to a more of a private like middle school, and I didn't want to go. I feel like back then I just felt like she was separating me from my kind more. And mind you, I don't put it at no fault. I know my mom, she was trying to be the best mother that she could, and she wanted me to have the best education, and she wanted me to get diversity. That's what she actually ended up telling me when I was older, that the reason why she put me into the schools that she put me into was, well, one, the area I lived in, that was the school that I was supposed to go to. So it is what it is on that point. But she wanted me to have diversity. She felt that when I went to church, I was around only black people, or mostly black people, and she didn't want me to feel that that was it. She wanted me to understand that in the real world, it wasn't just going to be black people, it wasn't going to just be white people, but it was going to be different. But for me, I just felt like I always dealt with not fitting in with the white people, and then when it came to the black people, I act white. And so for me, I didn't even, to be very honest, I don't even know if my mom knows this, but I didn't feel more confident and comfortable within who I am until after my college years. Even in college, I was so happy I went to a historically black university. It was different for me because I didn't know how to act or how to be, but I knew I didn't want to try too hard. Like that I knew. So I know I looked or seemed different. I know that for a fact. And even though I might have came off as comfortable enough to just be like, I don't care, like this is who I am, like I was very self-conscious. And there's people who are gonna watch this video and go, Ericka, I've known you forever. You didn't seem self-conscious. You didn't care what nobody thought. And that is partially true, but I felt like I needed to be that way or believe that and manifest that to be more comfortable within myself. So yes, that's how I came off, but I was so insecure. But I knew that, you know what, if I was gonna be in any way, shape, or form happy with myself, that I just had to just be me. And so I remember when people used to say, before I went to college, you bougie, Ericka, you're so bougie. And I used to be like, no, I'm not. I'm down to earth. I can hang, like, I'm not bougie. And now someone says I'm bougie, I'm like, and tell me something I don't know. So I just noticed those things, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle. And even now, I know that there's probably someone that's gonna say, oh yeah, you sound like a white girl, you act like a white girl, whatever that means. But I don't care. I remember my mom was just like, she noticed a change. I'm not gonna tell y'all what she said, but she noticed a change in me after my freshman year of college. She was just like, Ericka, this is not the Ericka that I knew. The girl that I left at school is not the same girl. Like, I left you and I let you go. You weren't like this, and now you're completely changing. And even still, I know when I was changing, it was probably to the far left, but I needed to do that to be able to find my middle and my balance in who I am. So I know what that is now. And sometimes I wish I was like that in my younger years, but everything happens for a reason. Most people love the new me. I guess you want to call it the new me. It's not new now. I've been the way that I am for some years. But I know there's some people who I've known since middle school, and they were like, I like this Ericka. Where was this Ericka when I first met her in middle school? Because the Ericka in middle school and elementary school, I was shy. I didn't say what I really thought. I kept it to myself. People would say some mean things to me, y'all, like real mean things to me, and I wouldn't do nothing. And I'm not saying be violent, but I think there's a level of sticking up for yourself that I just did not have. And now, I don't care. No, I'm just joking, but no, I really don't care though. I learned and found a way to be respectful, but still speak my mind and still be me. Now, I'm not gonna lie, am I perfect at that all the time? Times where I feel like the young Ericka comes back and I kind of get back into my shell a little bit, in times where I feel like I should speak up, but that's a whole nother situation and a whole nother story for another time. I just wanted to share a moment where I realized it, and with that whole story time that I gave, I realized that when I was in first grade, I've always felt different. I am not necessarily what you think of mixed race nowadays. Of course, I know I've done my DNA, my ancestry DNA, and I know that I am mixed with other things, but I'm not like my father was white and my mom was like that. That's not my life. But just the idea of being around a certain group of people when you're the minority of that, I definitely can relate when it came to chapter 2 of the book. And so I'm going to end this with saying that so far the book, I am enjoying it, and it is giving me a moment to really just dig deep and really think about things that I might have thought about before or haven't thought about before, and just really just think about how it's impacted my life, what I can use to grow from it even more. And also, I do want a little girl one day, and I know that it's going to be some changes. Like, I know for my son too, it's going to be some things that is different for him as well. But just from a woman point of view, I'm so glad that I've read this book so far, and I know I'm going to be able to take some things, and we're going to pray that one day, I'm blessed to have a little girl, and when I do, I want to be as prepared as possible. Granted, you're never fully prepared, but I just want to be able to have a little upper hand, just to be able to think about myself and be able to understand myself more, so that when that time does come, or even if it's not necessarily a daughter of mine, maybe it's a niece or a young little girl, I'll be able to take what I know and be able to fully understand what she may be going through and be able to be of some help. I want to conclude this also by asking you guys, what is your favorite part of the 2 chapters that you have read? Comment down below and let me know. I'm going to be reading all of the comments and commenting with you guys and having dialect with you guys. I'm liking this. I'm liking this whole idea of a book club through YouTube, and if this goes pretty well, even if it doesn't go pretty well, because I mean, it's still good to read a book. I'm going to continue this. Maybe find other creative ways to discuss the book in chapters with you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am going to be reading the next 2 chapters, so that'll be chapter 3 and 4, and I will be reading those to then discuss about it next week. So I plan to do this once a week. One of the videos from my 2 videos a week will be about the book. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure you are liking this video. If you are not already, make sure you subscribe. And again, comment below. If you haven't got the book, tell me. If you're gonna get the book, tell me. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.